back from the dead. All the EastEnders characters who've made a comeback. Soaps don't let death get in the way of a good storyline, so here's everyone who's had an unexpected resurrection. Few fear the Reaper in EastEnders, because death is never actually the end for anyone in Albert Square. It's a place that has seen resurrection numbers soar to biblical proportions, and no one really minds. From Dirty Den to Nasty Nick and lots of others in between, there's a whole bunch of Walford residents who've not let the embrace of death restrict their future. And that unique skill must be applauded. Here's everyone on the square who hasn't let the grave defeat them. Pat Butcher. She of the large earring departed the soap in 2012 after 26 years service in EastEnders, after sadly dying from pancreatic cancer. But she made a special appearance as a ghost in 2016, for Peggy Mitchell's last scenes during her battle with breast cancer. Resplendent in pink and having a cigarette, Pat listened as Peggy, played by Barbara Windsor, poured her heart out in her emotional final hours. And Pam St. Clement admitted part of the reason she agreed to play Pat Butcher the apparition was because she'd actually seen a ghost once before in real life. Dirty Den. The most famous of all the Lazarus imitators, everyone presumed Den was a goner when he got shot and fell into the Walford Canal in 1989. But no, shootings and bobbing lifeless in murky water is not enough to kill some people. Death is not enough to kill Dirty Den Watts, who strolled into the Vic 14 years later, very much alive. 18 months later he was once again staring death in the face, after being clubbed by his wife Chrissy with an iron doorstep. But can death keep a bad den down? Only time, and the EastEnders scriptwriters, will tell. Kathy Beale. Poor Kathy. She went and got herself and her husband, Gavin Sullivan, killed. The couple died in a car crash in South Africa in 2006, but not actually on screen. And then, woodyow, in 2015 she popped up again when it was revealed in an Enders 30th anniversary episode that she hadn't actually died after all. Even her own son Ian Beale didn't have a clue. But she reappeared in the soap that September. The inspiration behind the comeback was canoe man John Darwin, who faked his own death for the sake of an insurance scam. Claudette Hubbard. Claudette rose from the dead just hours after being killed. Walford's resident glamorous granny found herself being strangled, falling down the stairs, crashing through some rickety banisters, landing on a brick and seemingly breaking her neck after a furious row with her son Vincent and Patrick Trumer in the Mother's Day special episode in 2016. Despite apparently being buried in a shallow grave overnight and then concreted over the morning after, the resilient killer was still breathing in a shock scene at the end of the second episode when she popped up in a hospital bed. However, just days after all this, Claudette and her apparently indestructible red dress returned to the square to face off against her son Vincent. Only it didn't go so well and she was soon sent packing, threatening to return with vengeance on the mind. Nasty Nick. Horrible ol' Nick faked his own death back in 2014, pretending he'd had a drugs overdose. Nick should have been careful what he wished for though, as the following year, his lovely mom bought him heroin and left him to die. But as ever, being deceased means not a lot in Soaplad, as recently as March this year, John Altmer, who played Nick, has hinted that he could make a return to the soap. You never know with soaps, do you, he told The Sun. I mean they could get the right storyline. No one ever saw his dead body, did they? We will just leave it at that. There's always open doors and the writers work their magic. Grant Mitchell. Albert Square hard man Grant came a cropper in 1999, when Grant and his brother Phil went to intercept a drug deal to get themselves some cash. But, as dramatic as soaps can be, before the heist Phil found out Grant had slept with his ex-wife in revenge for Phil sleeping with Sharon. Love Square Central. As it turns out, an angry Phil shoots a gun and the car ends up in the River Thames. Phil gets rescued, Grant doesn't, and everyone thinks he's dead. In true Enders fashion he's not, and pops up in Rio de Janeiro with his daughter Courtney. And then washes up Walford in 2005.